So the next thing that needs to happen in order to ensure popular sovereignty is that people need to participate in the political process. And one of the most important ways that people can participate is by voting. And so I'm going to break into a lecture here that you're actually going to hear a few times, and especially for those of you who fall within the ages of 18 to 29. So I'm going to take a moment to explain this graph. This graph shows turnout in national elections on age. And if you look at the very bottom of the screen, you'll see that the blue line is people between 18 and 29 years old. The reddish line is people between 30 and 44. The green line is for people between 45 and 59. And then the purple line is for people who are 60 or over. And one of the things that you'll notice about this graph, even if you don't understand it fully right away, is the way it kind of zigzags up and down and up. I don't know why it's so hard to do. Up and down and up and down and up and down. The reason it's doing that is because what it's showing here is our elections, both midterm and presidential elections. So if you look on the far left, it starts off with 1968. Then the next one is 1988. I'm sorry, it starts off with 1986, and the next one is 1988. 1986 was a midterm election. What a midterm election means is when we have national voting, but there's no president on the ballot, right? Then in 1988, there's a president on the ballot. Then 1990, there's no president. That's a midterm election. We're voting for the House and some senators. And then 1992, then there's a president on the ballot. So every 4 years, there's a president. And one of the easiest things to see on the graph is that in midterm elections, voter turnout at every age group is lower than when there's a president on the, when we're voting for president. But the key thing that I want to point out to you is that in every midterm election, in every presidential election, if you look at that blue line, you guys, if you look at that blue line, your age group, if you're between 18 and 29, votes less than any other age group. People who are 60 or over, people like me, we vote the most all the way across. We vote all the time. And so if you're ever wondering why the laws that get passed are helpful to people like me, 60 and over, and not helpful to people like you, younger people, well, here's part of the explanation. So when it comes to voting, older people do a decent job. You know, still 60%, right, isn't great. But younger people, the 18 to 29 crowd, you guys vote at a very low rate. Now, if you look at the last few elections from 2014, where voter turnout was really low, 2016 it went up, and then 2020 it went up again. Voting does seem to have gone up among your age group and among every age group. So hopefully that's going to be a continuing trend and everybody will vote more. But if you're ever worried or wondering why policies seem to be geared more towards people like me than people like you, if you're in that age group, here's part of your explanation. So people have to participate in the political process, and when you look at this graph, your age group participates the least, and that's something that would really help our country, I believe, is if young people were voting more. Now, voting is just one of the ways that people participate in the political process. Another way that people can participate and should participate is by staying informed, paying attention to the news, listening to what the government is doing, both at the federal, the state, and the local level. Paying attention to all of that is also part of participation. So it's not just voting. Oftentimes we talk about it as if that's the only form of participation. It's not. The other way that people can participate is by communicating their preferences to public officials. And again, I'm talking about the federal, state, and local level, but letting the government know what it is you want done. Now, this can be done in a variety of ways. This can be done by um, calling your member of Congress, calling your city council, sending them postcards, sending them emails. It can also be accomplished by joining a political group or any kind of group that reflects your preferences. It can be done by participating in a rally and letting the public officials and the country at large know you think this is an important issue. And then also, one of the ways is discourse with your fellow citizens, talking to people about what's happening and what you think should happen in the future, what policies you think the government should be adopting or not be adopting. These are all ways to participate. And one of the things I'm hoping is if you're somebody who hasn't participated in the political process, I'm hoping that this class motivates you to start thinking about participating. And my job will be to convince you that it matters and that's important. But in order to do any of this, high quality information needs to be available. Citizens need to be able to stay informed. Like, it's easy enough for me to say stay informed, but you can only stay informed if there's high quality information that you can have at your disposal so that you know what's going on. Now, people disagree all the time about what high quality information is. And I suppose, again, if I were to have everybody here email me and tell me what's a high quality source of information and a low quality source of information, I suspect that there would be a broad disagreement on what constitutes high quality and low quality. So let me tell you what I mean from the perspective of a political scientist. The goal when you're voting, and I'm going to go back to voting, is to make sure that you vote for somebody a person or a party that reflects your preferences. Somebody who's going to do the things that you want done if they're elected. And so for me, high quality information is information that makes it possible for citizens to vote correctly. Now, what do I mean correctly? It doesn't mean voting correctly doesn't mean voting like Phil. What voting correctly means is you're voting in a way that the person you vote for actually believes the things that you believe and is going to do the things that you want them to do. I believe that there's high quality information available, and I think sometimes students get confused about this because there's so much low quality information that's available that's like confusing and obscures people's understanding of things. But there is high quality information available. Sometimes you have to search for it. So now I want to move on to this notion of political equality. Political equality. One of the keys for there to be political equality is that everybody's treated equally. Everybody's treated the same, right? And so one of the ways that we do that is it's supposed to be one person, one vote. Everybody's vote counts the same. And in many ways, that's absolutely true. If I lived in the same neighborhood as Bill Gates, and I most certainly do not, and he voted yes on something and I voted no on something, our votes would cancel each other out. If I lived in the same neighborhood as the President of the United States and he was voting on something and he voted yes and I voted no, or she voted yes and I voted no, our votes would cancel each other out. So in that respect, one person, one vote seems to be true. But it's also important that there be universal suffrage. One person, one vote is fine, but if voting is limited to a very select group of people, well, it may be one person, one vote, but if only a small segment of society is allowed to vote, then that's not good. So that's why we talk about universal suffrage, the idea being that's a fancy way of saying everyone's allowed to vote. And in the next video, I'm going to talk about this notion of universal suffrage, and we're going to discuss who is and isn't allowed to vote. And I'll bring up some issues, and you can think about how you feel about certain issues. So we'll come to that next.